Are you somebody who knows what foods you should be eating, and yet time and time again, watch yourself eat off your plan and eat at times when you are not hungry and are totally psychologically frustrated with yourself because you're not able to stop? Well, then this video is for you. Hi, I am Judy Terrell, and I am a nationally board-certified health coach, and I have a master's degree in counseling psychology in which I concentrated on addictions and specifically food addiction. And I have identified when working with my individual clients, which I've been doing for 42 years now, multiple patterns, and 6 that predominantly stand out for getting triggered into eating when you are not hungry. And I'm going to identify them in this video and then give you solutions, options for how to interrupt them so that you can control your weight in a more manageable way and your health issues. All right, everybody, so I'm going to jump right in. The first eating pattern that is getting most of my clients is what is called impulsive eating. And what impulsive eating looks like is, when you're clearing your plates from your children's lunch or your grandchildren, and you impulsively just pop in the leftovers on the plate before you're, empty them into the garbage and then into the sink. Or it might be when you're at work and you walk by your coworker's desk, and before you even realize it, you've picked up a handful of the M&Ms on the candy tray on her desk, and you've eaten them, and you're like, why did I do that? And those are just 2 examples of any number of ways that impulsive eating will sneak into your day. You are not hungry, but yet you were triggered to pick something up and put it in your mouth. So this is my first pattern, and it's very, very common. All right, so if you see yourself in this, habit pattern, then this is what you want to do. So the first thing you want to do is you want to commit to observing yourself for a period of time. I usually tell people to take a week. And I want you to actually, keep a little, get a notepad and document when these impulsive episodes happen, because they usually happen in a pattern, and it's a pattern that's repeating itself over and over again. So the first thing we want to do is identify what are the patterns. So for instance, when you're clearing your children's or grandchildren's plate, it may be that you're just completely feeling overwhelmed at that moment and you're looking for that little bit of a break. And, we're feeling overwhelmed all the time in 21st century life now. So feeling overwhelmed is probably not something we're going to be able to negate, but we can change the environmental circumstances that are leading us into impulsively eating, right? So what I would suggest you do is once you get an idea of where these habit patterns are happening and how they are occurring and what are the environmental, circumstances that are, triggering that, then you can look at how can you change the environment so that you are getting in your own way and minimizing your chance to be impulsive. So with the example of the kids with their plates, rather than you clear them off, then you can say, okay, I'm going to have the kids do it, or the older kids take the younger kids, some creative way that you are not is susceptible to popping those scraps into your mouth before they get thrown into the garbage. All right. Walking by the desk, you may identify that may happen more often when you are really stuck in deadlines, and you're really feeling stressed and overwhelmed by that. So avoiding that, walking by that desk under those circumstances would be something that you can proactively do once you've identified the triggers. All right, so that is impulsive eating. Second common pattern of eating when you're not hungry is compulsive eating. Now, you may start eating because you're hungry, but now you notice that you can't stop. So, it tastes so good, or the pleasure of it is really, just you don't want it to stop. And it may be going on in the back of your head, I really need to stop. Oh, I'm overeating now. But yet you keep taking more, or you keep taking a sliver, or you keep putting your hand back into the box or the container. And you recognize that, you just can't stop. You're compulsively eating now. And sometimes this happens when you're hungry and then you started to eat. And sometimes it happens when you're not hungry and then you start to eat. But the issue here is the inability to stop. All right. So, what you want to do to combat this pattern is, most of the time, what will stop somebody from compulsive eating is one of 3 things. One is the food runs out. 2 is you're so sick and stuffed that you have to stop. Or 3, somebody walks in and you're interrupted because you're embarrassed and you don't want them to see you overeating. So we can use that third reason for why it usually gets interrupted and do it to ourselves. So what you need to do in these circumstances is when you notice that you're in this compulsive, like can't stop eating, you need to literally out loud say your own name. In my case would be, Judy, what are you doing? But by doing that, saying it out loud, you are now breaking the autopilot, neuro pattern that's in your brain that's running, and you're getting your own attention. I then also suggest close your eyes. So you take the visual stimulus of the food out of the way, step back from it, or get up from the table, or move away from the counter, or put it over on the other side of the car seat that you can't reach it. And now you've interrupted the pattern, and you can now use your frontal brain as opposed to just running on a reflex arc to minimize the consumption, to stop that consumption. All right, so that's compulsive eating. That's number 2. Third pattern that is getting most of my clients is what I call trigger food, sexy food, or hyper-palatable foods. Believe it or not, the food industry, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody, but they really are manufacturing foods that are hyper-stimulating to the dopamine receptors of our brains. And in doing so, we can, get triggered into eating something that we really, when we're not hungry. And it's because, once you start, you have one of something, it's such a stimulus, a positive stimulus to your brain. It's a trigger. It is so good that, even though you're not hungry, now you want to eat it. All right. This is legitimately, the food environment that we're in right now is getting more and more, skewed towards this direction. And how you can identify trigger foods is they are multi-layered. So they have many ingredients. There's a lot of sensory, different flavors that are going in your mouth when you're eating them. And that, drives you to keep eating more. So for instance, chips, I'm 61. When I was growing up, there was plain potato chips and I think plain tortilla chips. They had salt and oil and that was it. Now there's chips that have, vinegar, sour cream, nacho, chili powder, pepper, jalapeno, just layers and layers and layers of flavor sensations. You get an egg sandwich. When I was growing up, it was, an English muffin with an egg and a piece of cheese. Now it's like an English muffin with an egg, a piece of cheese, bacon, guacamole, Canadian bacon, another type of cheese, layers and layers. Well, believe it or not, these things have overstimulated our brains and have now increased our tolerance where now, we seek them out and they are very calorie dense and they ignite our, inner drive to survive because we're driven to eat foods with multiple tastes so that we would eat when we were primitive human beings and not starve to death. Well, now we are not at risk of starving to death. We're actually at risk of increased obesity and health issues that come from eating too much. And these trigger foods are, causing this. So if you recognize that you are stimulated and triggered into eating these trigger foods, these hyper-palatable foods, which just means that they really are just uber delicious, then what you need to do is take a week. And hopefully, I would recommend even longer, but a minimum of a week. And you want to pull that back down. You want to eat simple foods. You want to make your meal so that you're having, maybe chicken with a marinade and then like a baked potato and, some vegetables, or an egg, a couple eggs, an omelet with just some vegetables and some cut up, like hash browns, but not with, cheese and guacamole and sour cream and beans and 5 other things. You want to bring that tolerance back down. Take 1 week where you're eating just one ingredient foods and putting them together for meals, but you're now decreasing your brain's tolerance. So now you're less triggered by these hyperpalatable foods and then eat when you're not hungry. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is what I call stress eating. Now, stress eating is when we are driven to eat when you're in the middle of a project or you have to go from your day job and now you're on way home to all the responsibilities of your second job, your home job. That might be elder care for some of us, still child care, other health issues for people that we live with, just the responsibilities of your everyday living after you're coming off a full day's work. And you're looking for food now. You're going to be driven to eat as a method to try and help you to just manage through that when your wheelhouse is up to here and you're overwhelmed and are looking for a way to procrastinate, what you inevitably are going to have to do, but you're looking for just that little break. So this is really easy where the bag of chips comes in, or the crackers and the cheese, or, any number of things, but you get the point. It's like, or you're on a deadline for something and you're just up to here, your brain is like too full, you can't really focus, and then it's like, I really need something to eat. When you don't need something, you're not hungry, but you're looking for a little bit of a break from this, from the energy they have to pump out. All right, so what you need to do in these instances is recognize that you're looking for a little time out and for something that's going to make you feel good in that. So we need to replace eating with a couple other options. And my two go-tos for this, I recommend that you have previously queued up a song that when you hear it, it speaks to your soul. It spills dopamine into your brain. It makes you feel good because you either you love it so much that it brings incredible pleasure, or it's got incredible memories attached to it. And now it gives you that same feel good that you're looking for the food to do, and which the food does do in that moment, but you're not hungry and you don't need to be eating. You're just looking to feel better and break up, give yourself that little break in between two things that you from one thing going into another thing, or, you need a little break from a project, but you really can't take a break. You're on a deadline. Two examples of this. So you cue up that song, you've got it bookmarked, and now you play it. You just take 3 minutes. You get this cascade of feel-good chemistry through your brain, and now that might be just enough to get you to go into the next, thing that you have to do, or refocus on the project, or whatever it is that's stressed you out in that moment. You're looking for something to make you feel good, and that can make you feel good without the calories and the potential health risks of eating when you're not hungry. A second one that I recommend is go on YouTube, have previously bookmarked a comedian that you like, and now just play 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You get a couple good deep belly laughs. That's going to, again, put a cascade of dopamine through your brain. It gives you that little timeout you're looking for. You feel better, and there's no calories and no health risks of that. As a matter of fact, there are only positive health risks or health benefits to those two methods. All right, so that's number 4. Number 5 is when you are eating and turning to food for energy. All right, many of us are not getting enough sleep. We're completely overextended for every 24 hours of the day. Welcome to our 21st century again. And so, the middle of the afternoon or maybe the middle of the morning, this is 2 common times for this. You're not hungry. You just ate breakfast or lunch, but you are literally you feel like you're falling asleep. You feel like your brain is shutting down. You are tired. And food, we will use food then, and specifically, usually when you're using food for energy, you're turning to something that's very sugary or very fast digesting carbohydrate. And let me tell you something, it works. It will energize you. It'll pop you up. You see kids eat sugar and then look at them 15 minutes later. Oh my God, they're hyper. Well, there's turning to food for energy when you're specifically, turning to these high sugar carbohydrate type options will give you that energy. But, as you know, if you're eating when you don't need the food, then you're not hungry, you're just looking for the energy, that has a lot of negatives to it, not the least of which you're going to be living in a body that you're not very happy with, either because it doesn't look good, it doesn't feel good, or it's, you're getting health issues, negative health issues. So eating for energy, we need to replace that. What are some other things you can do in the moment when you need this energy? And you can't take a nap, and you can't go get a massage, you can't go take an exercise class, which would all be great options, but you got 3 minutes, right? So here are my ideas for this. Number 1 is there's something called fire breath, and it's very simple to do. It's literally take 10 breaths, like using your belly as your diaphragm as a bellows, and you breathe in and out 10 times. Then you take a break, and then do that 3 more times. What that does is increases oxygen into your brain, it increases oxygenation to all the cells of your body, and it does wake you up. And it has 0 calories and no negative health effects. All right, a second option is to literally stand up and either march in place for 30 seconds, or you can jog in place for 30 seconds, okay? And then stop, and just like with the breathing, then do that 3 more times. That's 1.5 minutes. But what that does is it gets your heart rate up. It does get more blood flow and oxygen into your brain, reviving you in a way that the food would, but without the crash that's going to come later. And it does increase your energy in the moment, which is what you're looking for when you're eating for energy. And my third, option for this is caffeine. Believe it or not, caffeine used to be, the skull and crossbones, but now research is showing that up to 4 cups of coffee, the equivalent of 80 milligrams times 4, which is 80 milligrams of caffeine per cup of 8-ounce cup of coffee, is being correlated with reduced risk of dementia. So unless you have an anxiety disorder or your sleep is disrupted by caffeine, it may be that just taking one 80 milligram hit of a caffeine drink or coffee, or there's caffeine mints that you can get that are 80 milligrams per little mint, and just that little rev up, might be just what you need that you can help you not turn to the food. All right. So again, little asterisk here. If you're sensitive to caffeine, you're not going to want to use that one, but it may be an option because again, it's being correlated with decreased risk of dementia. And that is a concern for many of us who are over 50. All right. Now, the last eating when you're not hungry pattern that I observe for people is what I call eating for self-time. All right. This generally happens after dinner, before bed, although it can happen at other times too. But this is when you're not hungry, you had dinner, and then you notice that you're looking for a treat, a snack, and you're not hungry. And really what this is about is you just put out, energy for everybody else and everything else all day long. You're going to go to bed, you're going to wake up tomorrow and do it all again. And you want a little something for you, all right? A little something to give back to you that, is entertaining and makes you feel good. And so it doesn't have to be food. There are some other options. If you recognize that this is what you're doing, then some of the things that I have found helpful for people is keep a little, what I call, make me feel good or gratitude journal. And you would do this at night when you would normally be eating. So not first thing in the morning, but at night, because what you'd be doing here is just taking your journal out, and now you're going to reflect over the day, and you're going to recall 2 moments in the day where you smiled or somebody made you laugh or something made you laugh, and you're going to write them down. You're going to recall them to your brain because, again, by doing this, you are increasing dopamine and endorphin, all the serotonin, all the feel-good chemicals that, the memory of this, just you writing it down, called up in this moment, will be giving back and recharging your psychological battery the similar way to what the food would do, but without the negative, side effects of that. All right. So something to make you feel good about yourself at night, or when you are feeling, that you recognize that you are eating and turning to food as your way of entertaining yourself, making yourself feel good and giving back to yourself. All right, everybody. So these are the top 6 patterns that are leading people to eat off their plan, even though they're smart, intelligent people and know that they shouldn't be eating these foods or they shouldn't be eating at these times, and yet they keep, finding themselves doing it over and over again. My solution and my counseling and coaching with people is to try and identify which of these you're falling into, and then what are things that you can specifically do. I gave you certain examples for ones that have worked for many people, but I also work one-on-one with people all the time, and we have to be creative and find things that will work for them in their lives. And so I do 1-hour consultations. Contact me for my contact information. Let's set this up and let's, get a handle on this for you and figure out specifics of what you need to do to reverse these if they're happening to you. And you can contact me from that information. In addition, I have my website, judyterrell.com, that has got a lot of services and options that might be helpful to you, so please check that out. I also have my YourSecond50.life platform, which is, a virtual library of resources for men and women over 50 and all things having to do with how to optimize aging and living optimally from a health perspective, from an energy perspective, and from a looks perspective. So check that out as well, everybody. I'm grateful for you watching this. And listen, we got this eating when we're not hungry thing. We got it. You got it. Follow some of the information I gave you. Hook up with me and let me help you individually. And you got this.